Hi everyone, I'm Miss Lau. Today I'm going to share with you one of my favorite books of all time. Let me give you 5 seconds to guess which book I'm going to share by looking at this picture. A man with a smoking pipe and a magnifying glass. Right, it is one of the books in the Sherlock Holmes series called The Study in Scarlet. A Study in Scarlet was written by Arthur Conan Doyle and was published in 1887. It's a classic detective story. This book was divided into 2 different parts. The first half is called A Study in Scarlet, while the second part of the book is called The Country of Saints. To be honest, I wasn't very interested in reading mysterious and detective books, but this book caught my attention after I watched a Sherlock Holmes series on Netflix starring Benedict Cumberbatch. As I said, there are 2 different stories in this book, so today I'm going to focus on the first part of the book. Alright, let me give you a synopsis of the story. In the late 1800s, Dr. Watson, a British Army doctor, gets injured in the Afghan War. Upon his return to London, he needs a new home. After bumping into a former co-worker, Dr. Watson lives together with Sherlock Holmes. Holmes is very good at observation. He can tell what Watson does for a living and where he has been to. The 2 men rent rooms together at 221B Baker Street. Since Watson is very ill and doesn't go out much, he focuses on Holmes. One morning, Watson makes fun of an article about the powers of observation, only to learn that Holmes wrote the article and that he works as a detective. When Scotland Yard detective Tobias Gregson asks Holmes for help in solving a mysterious death, Watson and Holmes immediately head to the scene of the crime, a vacant house in Brixton. There they meet Gregson and another detective, Lestrade. They examine the body of a dead American named Drebber. Holmes inspects the room for clues, which he uses to determine specific details about the murderer. Watson and Holmes leave the house and visit the one who discovered the body. They learn that a drunk man was the only bystander. Holmes deduces that this man was actually the murderer, who had come back for the wedding ring found at the scene of the crime. Hoping to catch the murderer, Holmes places an advertisement in the paper for the lost ring. That night, an old woman arrives to claim the ring. Holmes follows her but loses her trail, telling Watson that she was actually a young man in disguise. However, the next day, Gregson arrested another person for the murderer. Gregson arrested a man whose mom rented her house to Drebber. Drebber had been thrown out of the house for making advances on the man's sister, and the son had followed Drebber, so naturally he must have killed Drebber. It seems that Gregson and Holmes have different views on who the murderer is. Who is the murderer? Which detective has solved the case? What clues are found to solve the case? I don't want to spoil the story. If you want to know the ending of the story, you can read this book on Hong Kong Reading City. I really admire the ability that Holmes has in observing every detail. When he makes observations, he pays attention to the basics and makes use of all the senses. That's why he's extremely sensitive to the details. I would recommend this book to anyone who enjoys a good old mystery. The plot is rather straightforward, I would say. However, the emotional connection the reader develops with the different characters drives the need to read more. The writer manages to leave the reader at a cliffhanger at the end of every chapter, which only made me want to read more. If you are interested in other Sherlock Holmes stories, you can find them on Hong Kong Reading City too. Hope we can have more discussion on Sherlock Holmes series in our lessons. Thank you.